Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, dear students. This is teacher Adam and this is lesson 90. So we're still doing this lesson is similar to the lesson that we did before. Hadda sharafta badan marka maanta waxaan dhigan doonaa labadan page. We're going to do inshallah page 81 and 82. Let's get started. People around the world. People around the world. Dadka dunida daafeega ku kala nool. Luqadahay ku hadlaan. jinsiyadahay kala haystaan iyo waxay maalmalba sameeyaan su'aalaha iyo kuwa lamid ayaanu kaga jawaabi doonaa cashirkan. People around the world. People around the world. Marka simple present tense weeye. He lives. Marka he, she, it verbka asbal raacnaya. Marka waxaad oranaysaa he lives, she lives, it lives. He lives isagu wuxuu ku nool yahay, ama she lives iyadu wuxuu ku nooshahay, it lives wuxuu ku nooshahay. It waan soo dhiganay. Where does he live? Where does she live? Where does it live? Where does he live? Isagu xagu ku nool yahay. Where does she live? Iyadu xagee ku nooshahay. Where does it live? Xagee ku nooshahay. Marka laga hadlayo xayawaanka weeye ama waxaan naf lahayn. Where does he do? What does he do? What does he do? Muxuu sameeyaa isagu? What does she do? Iyadu maxay sameysaa? What does it do? iyadu maxay sameysaa? So this place is Mexico City. What's his name? Qof kale ayaa laga hadlayaa. What's his name? Isagu magacii. His name is Miguel. Magaciisa waa Miguel. Where does he live? Xaguu ku nool yahay? He lives in Mexico City. He lives in Mexico City. Magaalada Mexico City ayuu ku nool yahay. What language does he speak? What language does he speak? luqadu ku hadlaa. He speaks Spanish. He speaks Spanish. What does he do every day? What does he do every day? What does he do every day? Maalin walba muxuu sameeyaa? He eats Mexican food. He reads Mexican newspapers and he listens to Mexican music. He eats Mexican food. Cuntada Mexicanka cunaa. He reads Mexican newspapers. Wuxuu akhriyaa jaraa'idka Mexicanka. And he listens to Mexican music. Wuxuuna dhegeystaa Mexican music. What's his name? His name is Miguel. Where does he live? He lives in Mexico City. What language does he speak? What language does he speak? Language or luqad. He speaks Spanish. What does he do every day? He eats Mexican food. He reads Mexican newspapers and he listens to Mexican music. Hida verbkooga asbal raacnaya. He eats, he reads, and he listens. And he lives. Ask and answer questions about these people. What's his name? What's her name? Where does he live, or where does she live? What language does he speak? What language does she speak? What does he do every day? What does she do every day? English, Canadian, Toronto, and her name is Kate. What's her name? Her name is Kate. Where does she live? She lives in Toronto. What language does she speak? She speaks English. Or sometimes you can say she speaks Canadian. No, she's Canadian. She is Canadian. She is Canadian. It means she comes from Canada. San Juan. What's his name? His name is Carlos. What language does he speak? He speaks Spanish. Where does he live? He lives in Puerto Rico. What language does he speak? He speaks Spanish. What does he do every day? He goes to work. And what about her? She goes to school, maybe. Greek, Athens, Anna. What's her name? Her name is Anna. Where does she live? She lives in Athens, Greece. What language does she speak? She speaks Greek. What's his name? His name is Ming. Where does he live? He lives in Hong Kong. He lives in Hong Kong. What language does he speak? He speaks Chinese. What does he do every day? He goes to the beach every day, maybe. Or maybe he goes to work. Sonia. What's her name? Her name is Sonia. Where does she live? She lives in Rio de Janeiro. What's her name? Her name is Sonia. Where does she live? She lives in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. What language does she speak? She speaks Portuguese. What does she do? She goes to school, maybe. Or she goes to work. What's his name? His name is Omar. Where does he live? He lives in Cairo, Egypt. What language does he speak? He speaks Arabic. He speaks Arabic. Or Egyptian Arabic. Something like that. Talk about it. Where do they live and what do they do? I live, we live, you live, they live. So for example, you can say I live in Chicago. Or he lives, she lives, it lives. Where do we live? Where do you live? Where do they live? Where does he live? Where does she live? Where does it live? What do I do? What do we do? What do you do? What do they do? What does he do? What does she do? What does it do? My name is Linda. My name is Linda. I live in London. I work in a library. Library. My name is Brian. I live in Boston. I work in a bank. We are Walter and Wendy. We live in Washington, D.C. We work in an office. My name is Bob. I live in Buffalo. I drive a bus. My name is Bob. I live in Buffalo. I drive a bus. We are Howard and Henry. We live in Honolulu. We paint houses. My name is Stina. I live in Tampa. I drive a taxi. We are Carol and Ray. We live in Cleveland. We cook in a restaurant. My name is Susan. I live in San Diego. I sell cars. And garden. My name is Victor. I live in Vancouver. I play the violin. Use these models to talk with other students about the people above. Modelka halkan lagu siinayo tusaalaha qaado dadana su'aalay jawaabo ka samee and maxaan ku dhahay sawirantan ka samee. Where does Linda live? She lives in London. What does she do? What does she do? She works in a library. Where do Walter and Wendy live? They live in Washington, D.C. What do they do? They work in an office. How about you? Where do you live? What do you do? Where do you live? What do you do? So dear students, our long lesson ends there. Till we meet next time, I leave you with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. And please, one thing that I've almost forgot, please, if I give you some exercise, make sure you do the exercise. It's through the exercises that you learn English and you learn how to read and write. And another thing is, when I do this lesson and then you watch it, do not watch it as a movie. Go slow and try to watch it several times and try to read it on your own. Try to read everything that we've read. Try to read it on your own. Iskaga akhri marka 10 wal akhriya ay dhegeyso isku day inaad marar badan dhegeysato saad u fahanto and san u akhrinayana u akhriya. And with that, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bye bye.